All right, everybody, I just turned my sound back on here. For those of you who are on, can you hear me? Give me a thumbs up. Put it in the box over there where you're from. I'm going to be going over some fun stuff today. So, basically, just going to be clearing this out here. I can hear audio. Wondering if the other viewer can. So, Carrie, I'm sure if you can, the other one can too. Perfect. Yeah, I was on a phone call with one of our other Wellness Way docs here for a second, so I only had. I tried to slide off the microphone so that way you couldn't hear everything we were talking about. All right, cool. So we got a couple people on here from New Hampshire. Awesome. Good, 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 good. Okay, perfect. All right, 1 second here. Just letting Cynthia know to be quiet for a second. I'm just kidding. She's awesome. So, all right. So the big thing we're going to be talking about today, as you saw or may have seen in that post that I had there, is basically we're going to be looking at mold panels. Okay. So I even just got another one back this morning. We've been teaming up with this lab called Great Plains Laboratories, and they have what's called a mycotox panel. So a mycotoxin panel. So we did this test on myself, on my wife, and on some of my patients who felt that they had mold, and I have 100% rate of success with finding mold in people, and it's something that I feel strongly about because it's very, very, very overlooked. So I'm going to go into that with you guys today. So just going through here. Good. Awesome. All right. So everyone can still hear me good, I hope, because I closed down my microphone box. If you can't hear me, if you can't see what I'm going to be putting on here, just put it in the comments. Okay, so why do I care so much about mold? Well, because it impacted my health drastically to the point where it was just the worst thing in the world. And anybody who you know who've had health problems or symptoms that no doctor can really figure out what the heck is going on, I can almost guarantee you 9 times out of 10, there's going to be some sort of mold component that's going on with it. If you brought that complaint to a medical doctor, the medical doctor is not going to know how to properly test for mold, for one. If they do, then you found yourself a great doctor. And two, they don't really understand the actual connection between what mold does to the body and how it can actually cause you to have horrible, horrible, horrible symptoms. So with myself, my quick story is basically we were down in Houston I was down there for about, 5 years, 4.5, 5 years or so. My wife was down there 6 years total. We came together, came back up here, and then we moved into a home that was causing me to lose all of my cognitive function. And if anybody knew me down in Texas, I was awesome. I'd only have to spend about 30 seconds with a patient. I would know their name, their parents' names, their husband, their spouse's names, their kids' names, what they did last weekend, what they did today, what they had planned for the weekend. I knew everything, and my mind was so sharp and so keen. It was fantastic. Then when we moved up into this home, my brain started feeling like it was melting from the inside out. It was horrible. I couldn't figure out what the heck was going on. So obviously, with the Wellness Way, I tested everything across the board. I did a food allergy test, stool test, everything. I did all this testing on myself because I wanted to find out what the root cause of all this was. Well, after I had talked with one of our other docs, Dr. Ryan Miller, he had mentioned something about mold. I'm like, well, I don't know if I necessarily have mold, but it's worth giving it a shot. So I had a guy come out. He did a test real quick on the home, found out that we had high content of Aspergillus and Penicillium. And as soon as we got that report back, boom, we popped out of that house and left immediately. So when we did that, Megan, she never really had any symptoms that kind of came up. She was pregnant at the time, so when I found out that there was mold too, the majority of the mold was coming from where the baby's room was going to be or where the crib was going to be. So I was like, that's not gonna cut it for me. So we moved. I started feeling a little bit better and things started going well. And then every once in a while I'd have like a trip up where, my brain would be functioning. I would joke around and say my brain's not functioning at 100%. Well, it would do that for a little while. I'd be doing great. And then all of a sudden, boom, it would hit me again. I'm like, why the heck? I can't get ahead of this stuff. I can't figure out what the heck is going on. So the number one thing when you have mold exposure that you need to do is get out of that environment. If you don't get out of the environment, you're constantly breathing in those mycotoxins, those mold spores. It's going to cause your body to be massively, massively, massively toxic. So rule number 1, get out. Rule number 2, test what you have that's active in your body. So I already knew what we had present. We had the Aspergillus and the Penicillium being present in the home that we were renting. So again, we popped out of that and we moved into another one, and it's basically hardwood floors through and through, and there's no mold in it, which is fantastic. So I'm going to go into what we found on my panel here. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen here for a second. Okay, here we go. So you can see this is my name. Now you guys know my age. All right, I know I look great for my age. I'm just kidding. So this is what we were dealing with here. So we had a high level, if we're looking here, okay, ochratoxin A. All right, is at 65.57. Normal range basically ends at 4, and the range that they have here is up to 20. Over here, mycophenolic acid. All right, we have it from less than 5 is in that green, that normal range. I'm at 43, so I'm high up on that one. And then going to page 2, I was clean throughout, so I didn't have any fusarium that I had present in my body. The Chaetomium globosum, that one, didn't have that present or anything, but I had multiple mold spores showing that I had a higher level of citrinin, okay? This one right here, Stachybotrys, is going to be your black mold, okay? It has Roerdin E. So if that guy goes up real high, you know what your exposure is coming from. It's coming from black mold, and that's not anything to mess around with. So what does this stuff actually mean? So I'm going to read this 100% verbatim because I feel like it's important for everyone to know this. If you don't know anything about mold, and if a doctor tells you that mold cannot make you sick, then that doctor needs to get their license revoked because that guy's quite honestly, a moron. So don't listen to people when they tell you this stuff, okay? So I'm going to read this for you guys. So ochratoxin A is known as nephrotoxic, which means it's toxic to the kidneys. It's also immunotoxic, which means it's toxic to the immune system. It's carcinogenic, which means it can generate cancer, okay? Those three things in and of themselves in a quote-unquote harmless mold, okay, Penicillium or Aspergillus, that's not anything that anybody should want or should have in their body, okay? It's exposed, basically is coming from your water-damaged buildings, okay? Anytime you have water exposure, you can grow mold. The more mold you have, the more spores you're going to have to deal with. It can also come from inhalation exposure from water-damaged buildings as well. So if you're just walking around breathing in those spores, it can make you feel worse. You could also get these from contaminated foods such as cereals, grape juices, dairy, spices, wine, dried vine fruit, and coffee, okay? So the cool thing is I don't eat any of those things. I'll drink coffee, but the coffee that I drink is bulletproof, so it's a clean guarantee, which means there's no mold or no pesticide in it. So if I do drink coffee, that is the only brand that I drink because I know that it's tested to make sure it's clean and clear. So the other thing with this too is it shows it can lead to advanced neurological effects or advanced neurological damage. Okay, it can also affect the kidneys, like we already talked about. It can lead to significant oxidative damage to multiple brain regions. And again, is highly nephrotoxic, toxic to the kidneys. So, going back to damage to the brain regions, they're telling you in this sample, if you read through this further, it will tell you that if you have this present, studies show that it contributes to neurodegenerative diseases such as Alzheimer's and Parkinson's disease. Okay, so obviously being 32 years old, I don't want to have any of those types of symptoms coming about. But quite honestly, with my ochratoxin being higher, I have those feelings every once in a while where I told my wife, Megan, that my brain is not functioning at 100%. And it sounded funny at the time, but I couldn't express it in any other way to her to let her know what I was feeling. And that's one of the tough things with mold as well, is that if you're two people who's being exposed to the same environment, it's very difficult to tell that person what you're feeling if they're not going through the same exact thing. And from what I've noticed, that men and women have different responses to different molds. And I'm going to go over my wife's here afterwards. I'm going to show you that she had some high levels too, and her symptoms, her symptomatology is completely different than mine. Okay, so cool thing about this test as well is not only does it test what active mold spores you have in your body, but it also tells you some things you can use to pull these things out. So if you do test positive, you want to say, well, okay, that's great, but what can I do to get this stuff out of my body? What can I do to detox this? So a great way to detox is going to be from charcoal, so an activated charcoal type supplement. We have a zeolite spray, a nano zeolite spray that we can use. Vitamins A, E, and C. NAC, which is N-acetylcysteine, or a precursor to glutathione. So glutathione is great. Liposomal glutathione is also great to help to stop some of the oxidative effects that it can have on the brain and nervous system. Okay, so that's just something right off the bat. Now the other one that I'm going to show with you here, okay, if I can see where the screen is here, okay. So we have mycophenolic acid. Mycophenolic acid, or MPA, is produced by Penicillium. It's an immunosuppressant, which means it can cause you to have a weak immune system. So a lot of people who have recurring yeast infections time and time again usually are going to show that you have a higher content of mycophenolic acid, and you're going to have candida overgrowth or Clostridia overgrowth. The one that affected and does affect a lot of people is this MPA right here, is associated with miscarriage and congenital malformations when a woman is exposed to this during pregnancy. So this type of mold exposure, again, Penicillium is not one that people typically consider to be dangerous. Everyone usually takes black mold seriously. Some people don't even take black mold seriously, but this level of mold, it's not something to be messed with, because it directly tells you, the science shows you that it can cause you to have miscarriage as well as having congenital malformations, or basically your baby's going to be born with deformities whenever it does come out. Unfortunately, Hoyt is fantastic. He's head and shoulders above where anybody else is. But again, it's really important to notice that these things are deadly to the body. The other one here too, the citrinin, dihydrocitrinone, or citrinin, it's produced from, again, Aspergillus penicillium. It can lead to nephropathy, so you can have some issues, again, with kidneys in there too, nephrokidneys. And it can cause damage to the mitochondrial membranes in the kidneys. The three most common exposures are through ingestion, inhalation, and skin contact. It's also known as carcinogenic in rat studies, and exposure can cause a weakened immune response. So again, these things time and time again are basically showing you that there's a lot of damage that can come from having mold exposure. So if you don't get this thing corrected, if we don't figure out that underlying cause of the problem, it's going to lead you to have more damage further down the line, okay? Now, I'm going to pull up my wife's panel here. So Megan knows that I was going to do this, so I got her permission already. So here's my wife's, okay? So not that it's a comparison, not that it's a competition or anything, but it's interesting here when we look at what's going on. So remember, I had higher levels of ochratoxin A. She does still have high levels of ochratoxin. She had high levels of gliotoxin, again, coming from the Aspergillus family. Penicillium, she had higher, I can't even pronounce that word, steratoglycositin and mycophenolic acid. Now, going on to the next page, Fusarium, she had a little bit of exposure to Fusarium here. Not too bad, but right on the tip. And then same thing with the citrinin. She had multiple mold spore species that she found in her panel. So, going into what that means, we already talked about the ochratoxins, so we talk about the we'll just call it STC because it's a lot easier to pronounce that, okay? Several species of mold come from this, and bipolaris can be considered to be carcinogenic, especially to the GI tract and the liver, okay? So if we have liver damage, one thing that our liver does is it produces our hormones. If we have abnormal health in our liver, abnormal liver function, we cannot clear toxins properly, we cannot have normal, lunch break's over, I'll watch the replay, very interesting. Thanks, Carrie. Well, thanks for tuning in here too. I'll make sure I make this a little bit more exciting. I'll try to wake up a little bit more. So, yeah, so having this type of exposure and hurting the liver can cause your hormones to crash down. And now a lot of people have been told that if you have mold exposure, that there's a statin medication called cholestyramine that's good at binding up mold toxins. And it's actually a statin medication which suppresses your cholesterol output. So if you're going to be put on one of those medications, please be sure that you test your cholesterol before you get put on a cholesterol lowering medication, because if we don't have cholesterol, the rest of our body is going to fall apart. We're going to feel absolutely awful. And I'm not a fan of statins at all, but it can be used to your advantage, okay? So going on here too, STCs found in many foods, so grains, corn, bread, cheese, spices, coffee beans, soybeans, pistachios, animal feed. In cases of lung aspergilloma, it can be found in human test specimens here. Where can you get this panel done? I'm in the Woodlands, Texas. I know who you are, Katie. Come on now. I'll go over where you can do this test here, because I'm going to hold you in suspense just for that statement. Yeah, so toxic to the liver, kidneys, and immune system. Tumors have been found because of this, especially if it has exposure or you have exposure to aflatoxin. Glutathione is going to be something that's going to be very beneficial with helping you to get this stuff out of the body as well. She had the higher mycophenolic acid, again, can cause an increased risk for miscarriage and congenital malformations. And then she still had the citrulline as well in her body. So she had a couple that basically popped up that were, again, considered to be higher than normal. So how is she expressing? She doesn't understand the brain stuff that I deal with. So I'll have these moments where I'll have my ups, I'll have my downs, when my brain's not functioning 100%, or it'll feel like my brain just turns into liquid goo and just falls out. It hurts so bad, and my whole brain it feels so inflamed a lot of the times. And I was doing fantastic. Now, with mold, some people have a higher susceptibility to being considered mold toxic. So when her and I came into the same situation, her immune system was able to handle a lot more of that mold. Even though she had more species, she was able to handle it better than I was. Okay, so prime example, we went to Ohio this past weekend, and we were hanging out up there, and we were in a building that had mold in the bottom of it. And I started getting, like, my brain started feeling like it was melting again. I started getting really tired, started getting like I just wanted to shut down. My body just wanted to go into a little mini coma, so that way I could wake up and hopefully this whole issue would be gone. It didn't work that way. I had that happen. Megan had a massive headache, and Hoyt, our little boy, had horrible digestive issues, and he's been having massive bowel movements for the past couple of days, to the point where Megan's actually taken to a salt room today just to try to help him to get more of those toxins out. So everybody can express things in a totally different way. It's just, again, measuring what is actually in your body and then doing something to remove it. And then if you don't have a doctor that agrees with you, a medical doctor or a chiropractor or a naturopathic doctor that understands mold, then do yourself a favor and do not talk to them about mold, because it'll be like you're talking a completely different language that they are not trained to handle. And if you do that, you're going to wind up going down this pathway where you're basically just going to get put on more and more medications, and you're not going to have any explanation as to what the heck you're taking these medications for. Plunkett, thank you for tuning in. I think you were on one of the last videos too. So when we have mold exposure, you can listen to multiple podcasts. Dave Asprey from Bulletproof, he had mold exposure back when he was weighing 300 pounds. He has a whole bunch of information on bulletproof.com. Survivingmold.com has a diet and regimen that you should eat, basically avoiding moldy foods, avoiding high sugars, fake sugars, grains, and eating more of like a ketogenic-ish diet with a higher veggie content. And there's certain vegetables like carrots, celery, things like that mold hates. So you can juice those things, or you can just eat them normally, and also help to give your body a little bit more support with moving things out and along. So to answer Katie's question here, so where can you get this panel done? I know you're in the Woodlands. Where can you get this panel done? We're teamed up with this laboratory, so if you wanted a panel run, we're going to be getting some more kits in. I actually have to order some today because once we got this set of tests in, they just kept going out. I'm actually going to make a note real quick to remember to do that. So if you want one, just let us know. We can send one down to you. Now, we don't have any payment. You don't pay us for the test. If you want a test read, we do have a test read fee for it. But if you want the kit, we'll send the kit down to you. It's really simple. You just wake up in the morning, you pee 10 milliliters of urine in a cup in your first urination stream in the morning. You tighten up the cap, you freeze an ice pack, put them together, and send it out. It's really easy to do. No needles, no nothing need to be done. And these results are coming back in about a week to 2 weeks. It's pretty quick. And as soon as they do, we give you the results right back. If you just want to read it yourself, go for it. If you want us to read it, we can read it for you. Again, if you're curious, if you're not sure if you have mold in your body, this is a great test to be able to run. I believe the cash price is $299 for that. Then if you do one, if you do have insurance, they do have like different payments. You can actually call them and try to get them to accept your insurance. We don't work with any of that. We're like the middleman. We just give you the kit and you do it from there. But realistically, since doing this, since getting some of these vitamins and things into the body, it'll actually give you a chance to jumpstart your body, jumpstart your immune system again, and start to reverse some of the damage you may have had. Mold is one of the most underdiagnosed complications across the board, no questions asked. Because mold can cause anything across the board. It can cause cancer, it can cause your kidneys to shut down, it can cause your liver to shut down, it can cause your heart to have problems, it can cause your brain to go down, it can give you mood disorders. So think of all of those things that I just said. How many medications are there across the board that you could be treated with? If I went to a medical doctor and said, my brain's not functioning at 100%, they'll say, you're crazy. I'm going to give you this medication. I'm going to give you an antipsychotic, antidepressant, something along those lines, because they're going to fear that I could take my life. And there's a lot of people who do have mold exposure that don't want to live like that anymore. I have a patient that I'm working with in Ohio. He's told me multiple times, if he gets exposed to it, he just breathed in aspergillus on a log that he put in his wood burner. He brought that in, and this was on Christmas Day. So he just laid down on Christmas and just wanted to die. So these types of symptoms that people are being exposed to because of water-damaged buildings, they're going to their medical doctors because they know that something's wrong, but they just keep chasing this whole symptomatology with medications, and they never actually get to the underlying cause of the problem. You should never have to be stuck on a medication your entire life. And it's ultimately your responsibility to figure out how healthy you are, and you have to keep digging and testing, and you can't just settle for somebody saying, oh, this is all made up, this is all in your head, just go and take this and just shut up about it. Because ultimately that's what they're going to do for you. So if you want this test, like I said, we have to order a bunch more in. I think it takes 2 days for us to get the kits. For Katie, going down to Texas, I think the ship time is usually about like 3 days or so if we ship it down to you. It just depends. I mean, you never know with the federal the post office and what they're going to do. But if you want this test, we can get this run. If you want more information on this test, just go to the Great Plains Laboratory.com, and they'll actually walk you through a lot of the stuff that they're actually going to be testing on here. They have all kinds of other panels that they run, but this is one of the go-tos whenever it talks about testing your body for mold and then fixing it from there. So I thank you guys for tuning in there. Katie, like I said, reach out if you want one. Plunkett, if you want one as well, just reach out, and then you can share this if you want to. And then I'm going to have you guys go on this journey with me. I'm going to start taking some things. I'm going to start retesting this stuff. Depends on how long it takes to get it out, and I'll retest to see how we do. So thanks for tuning in, guys.